Welcome, welcome. I am Dan Tabar of Data Realms. I'm going to be talking about slow cooking games with talent from your community. And let's see if we can get this working. Yeah, who am I? I'm the benevolent development dictator of Data Realms. I've been doing indie game development for over a dozen years. I started making Cortex Command back in Sweden, where I grew up. I started it in high school, and this was 12 years ago. So this talk is very relevant to this kind of slow cooking. It is slow cooking games we're talking about, and this is an example of that. We won some IGF awards in 2009 for Technical Excellence and Audience Award. I started this game as kind of a solo project, but over the years have accumulated a very talented team, which I will also talk about how I did with this slow cooking method. Now we're working on Planetoid Pioneers, and it's already 6 years in the making. It's coming out as early access this fall, but the technology of that was the majority of the work so far, and now we look forward to actually producing the game over the coming bunch of years. One more note here is that we were doing early access before it was kind of cool to do early access. Cortex Command was something that I had to release because I was running out of money at one stage, and it was something that worked out really well for us. We just put it up on our own website. This was way before early access was a thing on Steam, and we just put it up and said, okay, we're selling this not done game for a discount. Feel free to buy it if you want, and a bunch of people did. I got the idea from Mountain Blade as a team in Turkey, I believe. Tail Worlds, I believe, is their name. That I got the idea from, and then early access has been kind of a popular model. Marcus Persson of Minecraft fame said publicly that how you got the idea from Cortex Command. So that's my dubious claim to fame. So what I'll cover is slow cooking games, which can be less stressful, healthier, and more sustainable for you in your career. It's helpful for your game design process, so it's also helpful for your game. And it's also conducive to better teams and larger projects. I'll also talk about the pitfalls, which is, or how to avoid problems through slow cooking games, and that's avoiding burnout and getting bored of epic projects. Fan expectations and impatience is another problem you can run into when you make a game over a decade, obviously, and then finding and working with motivated talent is an interesting challenge, which actually, surprisingly, you can be helped by doing this over a long period of time. So it's not for every person. You got to be you have a strong, persistent vision for the project. If you don't have this really burning desire to make this specific game, that doesn't have to be a crystal clear vision, but it has to be a strong vision. So it's going to be hard for you to keep going over a decade, right? You're going to get distracted and do something else, which is something you can do as long as you come back to this project and actually want to finish it over the long run. So it's this kind of balance between having the vision of the end goal in mind that you've dedicated yourself to do, but then also not pushing too hard to only focus on that one game. You can actually let go and relax and have hiatuses where you totally step away from this project, even up to a year-long period. You also have to be excited enough about this idea, obviously, to see it through. And this is what I just touched on, the flexibility about its purpose. So for me personally, when I started making Cortex Command, I just wanted to make a cool game. And that was my only purpose. I was in high school, I had this vision for a game I wanted to see in the world. However, now with Planetoid Pioneers, and even with Cortex Command in the end, we made it so moddable that people actually ended up learning a lot of things. They learned programming, and they got a taste of programming by the Lua scripting that we had bound to the game, a very data-driven model. And I found stories of people telling me that they've graduated computer science degrees, undergraduate degrees, because in high school they played Cortex Command and got into programming, and they got a taste of it, and actually, it blew my mind that my game had this impact on them, more than just a throwaway kind of entertainment product. So I wanted to lean into that more with the new game. So if the new game teaches a lot more people deliberately that game development and science and all these things that our game touches on, programming specifically, I will be very more fulfilled, I think, than just having made a throwaway entertainment product. So you can be flexible about those goals as long as you still have a vision. So it's not for every project either. Slowcooking games, it's better for anything that's sandboxy and physicsy. Kind of Gary's mod is a great example of this. This is the extreme where, if something is just fun messing around with, and it doesn't even have to have game goals. I mean, Cortex Command didn't even have proper game endings for the longest time, and people still had a lot of fun just running around and crashing ships in each other and so on. It's not so great for games that will be spoiled by a spoiler in narrative necessarily. You might be able to do something in episodic. I just haven't really thought about that and tried that myself, but you can see how this might not be ideal for certain projects. A jam game, why would you do that over 10 years? So that's obvious. This allows you, this method of doing games is very important for quality of life reasons, right? I found, sleeping properly, eating healthily, exercising with regular intervals, and being social, not being in your cave for a year or more as you crunch out a game is more important than this little project of yours or a big project. It doesn't matter. Your life is more important than your game. I think this is something that we should be reminded of often. It also allows you, well, if you ignore these things, then you're not going to be making games for a long time, probably. I have many friends who worked extremely hard to actually push out a game, and it was successful, but they'd never want to make another game again. They got so traumatized by this process that, and in that case, I feel it's a bit of a failure in some ways. If you can't keep this up, this industry we're in, I feel a lot of us could make a lot more money in other ways, doing more boring things with the talent that we have, and we choose to be in here because we love the creativity and the freedom that it gives us. But if we can't do this for the long haul, why even bother? And yeah, Slowcooking games allows you to live a more balanced life, because we can actually, with this model, have a mundane job that is not glorious or glamorous, but allows us to make an income that we can live off of, and then do this slow-cooked, game or passion project on the side. It also breaks things up for us. I wouldn't suggest getting another programming job, for example. It's kind of hard. I found it very hard to have a programming day job and then come home and try to program on my game. My brain is not set up for that. It also allows your team members to do the same, which is a lot of interesting implications. It means that you can access and you can tap talent that is extremely experienced and high caliber, but they might not, they might have a full-time job, they might have kids and all this stuff, but they also have a desire to work on a fun, small project on a very, very part-time basis. I'm talking just a few hours a month, perhaps. But that quality over quantity is super, super valuable to you and your project. You can find this rock star talent that can give an incredible amount of quality of input over small periods of time, spread over many years. That will improve your project immensely, and this way you can actually tap into them and not put any kind of pressure on them to commit to 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week or even 10 hours a week. As an example, where our main lead artist, who basically only works with us on games, he's worked on very few games out there, but he is a stellar talent. He only works for us maybe a month out of the year, maybe. But when he does, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. The amount of content that he produces, we then have to catch up to actually implement for the rest of the year. And he's off doing all his other projects, personal projects that he does for himself, and that's totally fine. And we don't put any pressure on him. This also allows us to take hiatuses as life demands. Things happen, life happens, especially over a longer period of time. You lose family members, you get sick yourself, you get divorced, there's all kinds of problems that can happen that just makes your productivity plummet. And this is normal, and this is something that you should be able to handle without freaking out about your project not being finished or something. I used to feel a lot of shame actually over having my project take very long periods of time, and I would take long hiatuses because I would just feel like I was getting burnt out on this, and I'll talk more about it later. So it also allows us to design better games. So not only does this have quality of life benefits, but also quality of game benefits. Chris Hecker, who worked on Spore and is now working on SpyParty for, I think, at least 6 years. If we have a lot of people on the team, this kind of is an obvious looking quote. It was grabbed out of an article where he's talking about if you have a lot of kind of full-time people on a team, it's very hard to keep that burn rate down, and it makes you actually stress out a lot more because now this game has to come out to start making money because you're burning through $1 million a year. We are able to do, with Data Realms, we keep our burn rate extremely low because we can keep people on this extremely part-time basis and keep our costs very low over a long period of time. And it also alleviates this pressure to release the game quickly. And for the quality of the game, the creative process, if we're making a unique game, a truly interesting new game, which I would suggest everyone should do, instead of trying to rehash or do a sequel, this is definitely not the model for that. A unique game takes time. You have to really think about the mechanics and step away from it and come back with a fresh perspective. And doing it over a long period of time obviously helps. Also, just testing, testing each feature, testing with players and so on. This takes a long period of time, and you shouldn't have to stress that. In the end, you're going to come up with a unique game that has been worth this time, I feel, at least for myself. Building a team from your own community is this interesting thing that I wasn't anticipating. I wasn't anticipating making a game over 12 years to begin with, but there's a lot of things that when I did that, I realized were benefits. If you're looking to get talented people on your team, I found the best possible way is actually to start a community, and it grows organically around your game. Slowly over time, they see the quality that you're pouring into this and the really deliberate development. These guys and girls who join this community, I found about 1 out of 1,000. There's a bell curve, obviously. There's the people who just play the game and enjoy it, and there's people who start contributing in different ways, either by writing documentation, they start supporting the rest of the community by running your forums, or they outright start modding your game and turn out stuff that's better than you could have ever done yourself, and it's super impressive when that happens. When that happens, you've already filtered them. They're super motivated and self-motivated, so that's one thing checked off. They're super talented because you're picking up their stuff. It's like, wow, this is the best stuff I've ever seen anyone make. So not only are you driven and talented, the only question that remains is could they work with the rest of the team? And that's when you invite them to, okay, would you like to be on the official team and have a credit in the game? The answer has been 100% time, like yes, because they're already doing this for free, so why wouldn't they want to be in the game and maybe get compensated if they really, yeah, so that's an interesting, so everyone in our team, we're 12 people in 9 countries on 4 continents, is completely distributed. The other, obviously, we're on the internet. So, and the internet is magical in the sense that we have a global talent pool that we're tapping from. These one in 1,000 people come out a couple of times a year at most. But in the end, these 12 people, I'm so proud of having assembled this incredible team. I mean, there's our Miro, our main programmer is Slovakian, right in the corner there. I don't know if I can do mouse here. Yeah, this guy. Slovakian now is in Argentina. He's our back-end server guy. Chris, who looks like a murderer, is our porter. He used to work at Rockstar. He ported GTA to the PS3, I believe. So he's incredibly talented. He lives in Western Australia now, has 2 kids. He also has 2 kids. These guys are the most productive guys on the team, despite having 2 kids. Me and the main artist, and one of the rare occasions we actually are in the same room together. This summer was actually the first time that I ever met Miro after having worked with him for 6 years remotely, almost daily, and we got to work together. Yannicka is our Twitch kind of liaison and PR wizard. I mean, she's just joined the team, and she's hooking us up with the whole Twitch and streamer communities. Mika Mulperi is our musician in Finland. Yannicka is from Amsterdam, or not Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And our AI specialist is a PhD student in one of the universities in Sweden. Stefan is amazing. He's made the AI for both Cortex Command and Planetary Pioneers now. So these are not all the people. This is just an example of how spread out we are, and how really talented these people are. I mean, hopefully you can check out our game at some point and get an idea of how good this product is because of them. Don't get burnt out. This is a pitfall, right? If you are working on something over a very long time too intensely, you're gonna feel this sensation that, oh man, this game is crap. I hate it. This vision. You basically you get too close to it, and you lose sight of your vision. Really listen to yourself. Shamelessly take those breaks so you can step away and do something completely different, even up for a year. That's something I would highly recommend. I've done that multiple times where, Cortex Command, I want to emphasize that I didn't work on the game for 12 years. It's not 12 man years. I started working on it 12 years ago, and I went to school, I had jobs, I had periods where I just didn't work on the game for up to a year sometimes. And it was the best thing ever, because I would come back and I would actually see the product I would see the vision in the product, and it was like, wow, this is actually going in the direction that I originally envisioned, and I was re-energized. Yep. So, and life events, sometimes you don't, this burnout can happen, or just the productivity dip because of life events. It could be good things too. You have a kid, you're not working on a game for a while, while they're a baby, and that's a beautiful thing. So allow that for yourself, but also your team members. Don't put any pressure on them whatsoever. That's something that's worked for me. Just, if someone has something come up in their life, or they go to school, they start a new semester or something, just congratulate them and say, this is fantastic. I mean, let's just let me know when you can contribute again, and don't feel any kind of, put any pressure on them. So another tip is to constantly work on different areas of the project. Don't try to perfect this one part and just get too tunnel vision on this one thing, because you're going to get bored of that one thing, and it's going to start feeling like just crap. The whole project is just kind of a tedious mess. So instead, do kind of whack-a-mole style, like the thing that pops up that seems like most fun or most urgent to work on right now. Just work on that, and it will mix things up and keep things fresh for you. Yeah, so good enough for now, and move on to something else. Perfectionism is the productivity killer. I struggle with this a lot. Trying to perfect this one thing is very detrimental to productivity. Manage expectations. The community, no one likes to wait for a game, for 10 years. They're never, the reason you have a community is because these people love your game, right? So it's important that you very clearly communicate and set expectations of what your vision is, so they don't start projecting their own visions that you cannot fulfill with your efforts and over this long period of time. Otherwise, they will be disappointed. They will be disappointed anyway. So don't, there's going to be people who you can never satisfy, and especially with the timeline, it's going to be hard to keep up with those expectations that they kind of put on you. So you have to kind of do your best to present your own expectations, but you will never be fast enough for people, especially in this model. And I almost see it as a public service at this point. I'm teaching kids to be more patient. So keeping the team happy and motivated over long haul development. let them dip in and out of life. We've already talked about that, and also work completely remotely and distribute it. And this also allows you to tap that global talent pool and really get the world-class talent on your team, even if it's small and low budget. And yeah, we've talked that. They can add the most value for the least cost just because it's so easy to work with you. You don't put those draconian demands on them about I need your and this being said, sometimes you do need to hit milestones and kind of pull together the team to push to, submit to the IGF or something like that. And it's actually nice if you do this slow cook method, you can sprint in a short amount of time. And I don't like to call it crunch. It's not a crunch because it's been so laid back 80% of the time that it's just a nice switch up to actually, for maybe a month, rally the troops and get everyone together, and they get all excited about, okay, wow, now everyone's kind of pulling in the same direction at the same time. Let's just do this. We did that this summer, and we got together physically in the same location. It was amazing. We got so much done, and it was so fun, and it was invigorating instead of being draining like it crunches. So sprint instead of crunch. Always give generous credit when credit is due. So I'm kind of cutting into question and answer here. Would you like me to finish the presentation, or would you like to ask questions? That's presentation. Wonderful. I can answer questions outside. So generous credit where due. Put everyone in the credits that just keeps people happy, obviously, and it's only fair. Build a constructive creative culture. Obviously, that's something you want to do. Always be constructive. Have a decider to make, that's me. So I'm the dictator, right? Benevolent development dictator. Everyone who joins the team is very clear on this, that I am the one. It's not a design by committee, and a lot of everyone on the team actually enjoys this, it seems, because it's not this kind of wishy-washy thing. They know that I actually listen to people, and if it makes sense to me, if they could convince me, and I'm a pretty reasonable guy, and they see this, and I don't just say this because they see this over time, they will trust me to make a decision at least. Sometimes it's not the right decision, and then it's either pointed out to me or I realize myself, and then I make another decision. And this has worked for our team at least. It's a lot better than trying to do it as a group, I feel. Use good tools, Slack, GitHub, Trello, and Dropbox, very important to use these modern contemporary tools that we have. They're hugely beneficial. So. Compensate individuals. You can pay them up front if you can afford it. Otherwise, do revenue share, gross revenue. No weird expenses in there. It just makes sense. This is a way you can get top talent on your team and compensate them and make them motivated to work for you, even on a very small part-time basis. You just have to feel it out and have an individual negotiation. We have these contracts. This is docontract.com is a fantastic tool to create contracts very quickly and collaboratively with them. Another one is Docracy is a nice tool to actually sign them digitally. Docracy, it's spelled as you would. The bonus, I don't know. Yeah, I think I have time for this. So we've had the luxury of this long period of time to actually build technologies that are unique, which we then can build unique games on top of. And it solves the whole cloning issue, because no one's going to start remaking, especially no one's who is in the space and in the business of cloning games, is motivated to actually remake a whole physics engine that this game design is dependent on. So if you make them fundamentally unique, then it's really hard to rip off the tech. It's also hard to rip off even the game design. If you iterate on something over a very long period of time and just refine it and make it super good, even that makes it more challenging for someone to rip off. So this is just a bonus that we found of doing the long kind of slow cooking games. So recap, I have covered the benefits, which are numerous and surprising to me. They were, and subtle in some ways, the downsides and how to avoid them. And case studies, not so many, but Data Realms is close to me. There's lots of other ones, actually. The Witness that John Blow is working on. N++ just came out after 11 years of development, and Chris Hecker's SpyParty. Aztez is my friends in Phoenix have been working on for numerous years. And if you look around, like there's the successful long-term indies have been doing this actually to different degrees. Brian Provinciano and Mark Temposh working on Retro City Rampage, and Megia Kure, I think I mispronounce it every time I say it, but are other examples of that. So thank you for listening. This has been Slow Cooking Games. And we have a little bit of a plug here for our new game. You can sign up for the Planetoid Pioneers kind of Slack. We're abusing Slack in a way. We have a community of 500 people in one team. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Slack, but that's kind of unconventional. We have another 1,000 waiting in line. If you sign up here and you say that you signed up through the Leadership Summit, I will try to bump you through that line, and you can check out our newest builds and this stuff that we've been talking about. So thanks again. Do we have any time for questions at all? Yes? Okay, so question.
Given how loose the expectations are that you have on the team, how do you establish what's fair compensation?
And that is a really kind of like the fair bone that Jay just mentioned yesterday to me that like makes sense. It's a feeling that you have a conversation with someone, you get a sense of how much they contribute and how much they feel they should get. It's a conversation. I do this individually with each team member. I don't publish among the team. I feel that's kind of productive to have like this kind of, oh, you got more revenue share or whatever. I try to keep that under wraps, honestly, for everyone's benefit, honestly, and the team's health. It's something I just individually, and I've never really had a problem coming up with I try to be generous, I try to be generous with people, and if I feel they've contributed significantly, I think they should be significantly compensated, so.
With a distributed team and with everyone kind of working on the game whenever they feel like they can or whenever they don't have anything sort of getting in the way, like life events and
Right.
jobs and whatnot, do you ever have a situation where one teammate is blocking another and hurting productivity when it is?
I see. Like they need to provide some asset that someone else needs, right?
Like that person just had a baby. And
Oh, sure.
they can't help out.
That happens, and then you just go and you just like this. You can't have this pressure. Like just let it go. Let the guy who's being blocked work on something else. Suggest they work on something else. And I really don't assign people. Like I suggest everything. I go, wouldn't it be nice if we got this done? And I just kind of pep talk them into like getting excited about working on something instead of going like, you need to work on this right now. I try to be very, very relaxed and kind of I don't know. It works for me. I have I guess a leadership style that is super kind of casual, and so with those things, those times happen, and either you bring on someone else, like our main artist couldn't work on the intro for our game, so I found someone else to do that, and we got an excellent other guy to do that. So sometimes you just have to reach out and find someone else. Yep.
When developing over a very long time frame, are there images of like the technology changing, or even just the design environment is expected?
That's a good question. So I would add this to the this is not for every project. Don't try to be competing, or don't try to focus on or make your project dependent on one platform, for example. Make it platform agnostic. Make just a good game design, and then when it's about to start getting ready to release, look at what platforms it would make sense on at that time. You kind of steer it as it's going. You get an idea of where you want to land this plane, analogy. The runway of a platform and the plane is the game project. That was a horrible analogy. Yeah, but it's like you kind of, okay, there's something we can target here, so let's just move in that direction. You kind of get a feel for that. I wouldn't start a project with like the idea that we're going to release on the PS Vita only, because it has this touch thing. It's not a good target, or it's not a good model for that kind of game. And don't try to compete on graphics, like with the AAA titles and so on, and try to be cutting edge. All our games, they're 2D, they're kind of timeless in that sense. The last game was a pixel art game, so we're not competing on that. We're competing on game design and game content, Go ahead.
When do you know when you're done?
That's an excellent question too. I don't, I at some point for Cortex Command, I had a vision. You know, I wanted to build a physics engine that supported a cool tactical game, and then have a meta game on top of that, which is strategic. Once that strategic game was playable and in place, and a little bit of polish was on that, I felt like I had fulfilled my vision at some point. And it was like not this one day that I could celebrate, like, done, you know. We're still updating Cortex Command. We're still, you know, fixing bugs and so on. And there's people on the team that are working on it. So it's, you know, why does it ever have to be done, honestly? But that sense of completing your vision that you originally had could be, you know, a guide for that, you know. So, anyone else? No? Cool. Well, thanks again, guys.